and then the bank will lend out the public funds, and that's not allowed. But if that's really what it means, when you put your funds in Bank of America, they do the very same thing. They're going to lend it out. Either they're lending out public funds, or they got the money, they own the money, and you've got an IOU, that's what the law is, that when you put your money on deposit in a bank, you've lent money to the bank, and the bank owns the money now. So as soon as you put your money into Bank of America, you've lent them money, the same as putting it in your own public bank. So I don't think that law makes sense, but I know somebody was mentioning a legal opinion that went on for, I don't know, it was a very long legal opinion saying the reverse. I mean, there seems to be this concern. So the San Francisco Deputy City Attorney came out with this letter opinion saying that it wasn't a problem if you're a charter city or a charter county. So I'll read it. He said, this is Thomas J. Owen, San Francisco Deputy City Attorney. A court would likely conclude that California Government Code Section 23007 does not cover San Francisco because the city is a chartered city and county. Similarly, a court would likely conclude that Article 16, Section 6 of the state constitution, which limits the power of the state legislature to give or lend the credit of cities or counties, does not apply to the city. A court would likely then determine that neither those laws nor the general limitations on expending city funds for a municipal purpose bar the city from establishing a municipal bank. A court would likely conclude that the city may own stock in a municipal bank and spend city money to support the bank's operation if the city appropriated funds for that purpose and the operation of the bank served a legitimate municipal purpose. So that seems pretty clear. We now have 20 U.S. states that have introduced legislation of one sort or another for a state-owned bank. California was one of them, and it had a bill that passed both houses of the legislature, but Jerry Brown didn't sign it. And his argument was that we already had a banking committee and we had too many committees and we didn't need another one, and that we could do this in-house. But of course we haven't heard any more about it since then. But it did pass both houses of the legislature, which is pretty remarkable. People say, well, North Dakota is got oil, it's a small state, they set it up 100 years ago, it's agricultural, it's not like us, we could, even though they did it, we can't do it. So for that reason, I wrote my book, The Public Bank Solution, where I looked globally and historically at other public banking models. Well, it turns out, I was shocked to see myself, that 40% of banks globally are publicly owned. These are largely in the BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, which house 40% of the global population, and which all escaped the credit crisis. Russia went down for a little bit, but they came back up. So there have been two recent banking crises globally, the 2008 one and then the 1998 one in the Asian crisis. And after both of those, public banking has experienced a resurgence. And this is for several reasons, but one is that they're safer. I just wrote an article about Costa Rica. 80% of deposits in Costa Rica are in publicly owned banks. The IMF has come in and the US has come in and tried to lean on them to privatize their banks, and that people they want their public banks because they're very safe. They never go, the little private banks keep going bankrupt and the people lose their money. And so they've all rushed to these public banks. The public banking system was set up in 1949 when there was a revolution, there was a civil war, and the winner of the Civil War knew that if he didn't, at that time, Costa Rica was desperately poor. It was the poorest country in the region. So in 1949, the winner of the Civil War set up basically, he nationalized many industries, and one of them was the banking industry. And this worked really well. He started funding everything in sight. They got a lot of money for the government. I mean, it seems to me that if you want to escape paying taxes, what you need to do is allow your government to make some money. And one really viable business they could go into right off the top is banking. So that's what they did, and there was an attempted, I think there were 2 attempted coups and 1 attempted assassination, partly from the military, so he just got rid of the military. Well, you can see right there how much money that would save if you didn't have I mean, for us, it would save like half our tax bill. So then he had all this extra money that he could put into, they still have an excellent medical system, covers everybody, excellent education system that covers everybody all the way through. And they were rated something like the happiest country in the world, happiest people in the world. Anyway, the public banks lend countercyclically. They lend when other banks are pulling in. When they're afraid to lend, you can see charts where as the private banking lending shrinks, the public banking lending goes the other way. And there are actually studies that show that they're less corrupt. People think, well, the government will be corrupt, you know, so it'll be a corrupt bank. But public banks are actually less corrupt. It's harder to be corrupt than a public bank. You've got a mandate to serve the public. If you put right in your charter that you want full accountability, full transparency, and a mandate to serve the public, they obviously that bank is going to be more accountable and more transparent than a Wall Street bank, which doesn't have such a mandate. They're also more efficient, and they're also, surprisingly, slightly more profitable, which is surprising because they're not actually trying to be profitable. I mean, they're trying to serve the public. So when the government owns the bank, the government guarantees are built in. You don't have to worry about FDIC insurance. The government is the bank, so they obviously back the bank. Credit goes where it's needed by the public and the community. Interest returns to the public, and you have a sustainable system where the bank profits feed the economy rather than feeding off it. And I'm president of the Public Banking Institute, and we have a lot of information on our website about public banking and about different ways you can tap in, et cetera. And these are my 2 books on the subject, and my blog is at ellenbrown.com, and I've got over 200 articles on banking-related subjects there that I wrote, and a bunch of interviews. So that's all.